Hello, I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. I wanted to let you know, heads up for the Ozarks, we got some severe thunderstorms, and there are three very important things that I wanted to share with you with regard to these upcoming events. First thing is that there is a little bit of risk for severe thunderstorms today. Now, Springfield's not really included in this, but the level 1 starts here, and then it quickly ramps up to a level 2, 2 out of 5 risk for severe thunderstorms. So it would include West Plains, Harrison, down around Gainesville and all the areas of north central Arkansas. Mountain Home would be included in that. And that is for later on this afternoon. And to go along with that, there is a tornado risk. It's a minimal one, but it is showing up a 2% chance and basically coinciding with that level 2 area, same area. So West Plains, Harrison, north central Arkansas could happen. It's interesting that the NATOcast does put a little, measurable tornado prediction there. It's based on looking at this pattern, looking at previous, past data to see how it matches. So a little 2% risk shows up there, but on the CSU, no mention of it at all. The only tornado risk that shows up is in New England for today. But notice there is a hail risk, and I think primarily hail is what's going to fall out of any storms that will develop already have. Now, I snapped the radar shot at 1250. And you can see some storms leaving Dent County and going off to the east. So basically well out of the Ozarks. But look, there's a little storm forming there northwest of Gainesville in Ozark County. And more may fill in right here. So again, any of those that form down here in the next several hours will probably kick up their heels a little bit more. And that's where that slight tornado risk, but measurable tornado risk exists. So that is point number 1 of the 3 things you need to know. The second thing you need to know is not this. There's 2 parts to this. So there is a much bigger severe thunderstorm risk tomorrow, Friday. And as you can see, it ramps up pretty quickly and becomes a level 3 out of the 5 categories. Not that far from Springfield, and that would include Bolivar, Nevada, Joplin. It would include Hermitage, up along all the way up to Clinton and points northward would all be included in this higher risk. And the tornado risk is a little higher. The Ozarks are either going to be in 2 or 5% with the dividing line right around Springfield. So there's a greater risk of tornadoes northwest on Friday. I'll show you some radars in a second. And this is the CSU outlook. Now, the tornado risk is maximized up here in northeast Missouri into eastern Iowa. But notice this yellow area is the 10% risk area, and that's higher and through at least the northern part of the Ozarks than the official forecast. And there's a wind risk here that I think is underdone. I think the Storm Prediction Center had a pretty high wind risk there from Kansas City over to Columbia, and by default may infringe upon the northern part of the Ozarks, but a pretty big hail risk too, maximized for significance in north central Oklahoma. So here is the first point of tomorrow's forecast, which is thing number 2 you need to know. These are isolated supercells, and I think there is a strong chance there's a cold front coming in, but these are not along the cold front. These are prior, so it's a prefrontal convection, and a lot of times you really have to watch these. And this has been indicated on several different runs, so these might be tornado producers here very easily. Now, these will not affect the Ozarks most likely. That one will probably go just north of Clinton. Again, if you want to take this exact placement, too, and I wouldn't do that. Grain of salt, these storms could vary by several counties as to where they actually form. But anything that forms down here would drift into the northern part of the Ozarks. And these would be individual supercells capable of producing all modes of severe weather, larger hail. They just last longer. And if they can develop sufficient rotation in the lower part of the atmosphere, then they would produce tornadoes. That's point number 2 you need to know. Point number 3 is starting to form on this. This is 3 hours later. These are still pretty dangerous potentially, but there's another line forming here. And point number 3 is if I move ahead to 9 p.m., this all congeals into one huge severe weather producing line. There could be a lot of straight line winds right along this that could be dangerous. Notice there's little embedded short segments that could produce tornadoes like that one right there. Again, don't put the placement to heart, but the possibility is there. See, there are little, when you see those little snail trails, there's those little gray areas. Those are supercells. They just last longer. They have rotating updrafts, so anything is possible with them. But so often in the Ozarks, we see these little tiny line segments produce tornadoes. So again, placement of that, I'm not guaranteeing. That they may exist at 9 p.m., yes. Now, what about the rain? There is a possibility that flash flood guidance will be met, 15 to 40% chance in the yellow area north and west of Springfield for Friday. And you can see by looking at those previous radar images how that might be possible. Here's what fell over the last 24 hours, and Bolivar got hit pretty hard there in some areas, receiving 2-3 inches of rain with some of these very narrowly focused thunderstorm trails that move through the area. Springfield had about 0.6 of an inch. And then if we look at what the forecast is for these same areas, this is the HRRR's idea. Clinton 2.5, Springfield 1 inch, Joplin 1 inch, but these red areas are 2, almost 3 inch total. So that would add in some areas to what had already fallen. And then the Weather Prediction Center, this is the human look at it, just consolidates everything together for you. A little bit juicier, Springfield 1.3 in addition to what we had, Joplin 1.6, Clinton 1.8, and implied that southeast Kansas may get a little bit more rain once the humans look at it than anywhere else.